Hey everyone, welcome to your daily update for SOL, BTC, and all these other bits and pieces. So let's start with liquidity. On the 1 day, the action we've had in sort of the last 24 hours with the dumping and the sideways and then the little pumps and all that kind of stuff has kind of got people clearly confused. So this is classic news week. You know, we have a lot of news and stuff this week. They're trying to build up an equal amount of shorts and an equal amount of longs, which means at some point they're probably going to Darth Maul everybody and just take it all. But as you can see in the 1 day liquidity, there's just as many people who have opened up longs as what they have opened up shorts. BTC, interestingly enough, people still seem to be a little bit more bullish on it at the moment, probably because they think it's holding that 115 level really well. Little do they know that's probably not going to be the case, but we shall see. So if we look at the 7-day liquidity, 7-day liquidity, more bearish positions, so more shorts open, which makes a bit of sense. People have been opening them as the price has been coming down. So the more shorts that open, the more likely this price is to go back up. You know, so that's kind of what you look at. You look at whatever is the bigger pile is the pile that generally gets taken once they have taken the lower levels. So 7-day liquidity is down to sort of like 170 on SOL, up to about 202. So it's still that same sort of range, going down to about 112, 113K if they swipe the bottom on BTC, and then sort of up to about 120 would take most of it. Look at the 30-day liquidity. 30-day liquidity would be regarded as slightly bullish for BTC, but again, giving them the opportunity to pump down, or dump down, I should say, to 110 and take all that. And it's still not really much of a reason to push past the low 120s if they went up. SOL dump down to 160 would make would more or less wipe out everything 30-day. There is deeper than that, you know, available on some bigger time frames, but particularly people who entered on the monthly trades a while ago and got in sort of around those 150s. And it's sort of showing that anything up to about 207, 208, maybe 212, you know, to the top side if they wanted to wipe it all out. So that's the long-term liquidity. If we have a look at what they've been doing over the weekend, they've sort of been ranging in a way that allows them to meet those levels that I messaged about or sent out some tweets about. So BTC came down and it landed into that 115 area, and then they had to spend all this time down there so that people would enter shorts, and then that gave them the liquidity to push up to that target, which was about 1165. So that's been done now. They're still pushing up, so it's interesting to see that. But I guess what they need to do now is make sure it looks bullish, and then they're going to fill in this liquidity back down here again, so get people to open longs. So SOL has not gone to its target yet. So I was sort of expecting it to get up to about 118. It is a daily level, and we do have a couple of hours left. If they want to induce more shorts, then I guess staying flat for now is not such a bad thing. But you can see it's looking like it's going to poke up and grab that 100x liquidity now. From the higher time frame, there's still a ton, as you can see, to the downside. So, you know, BTC goes, there's numbers down to 102, 96, 98. SOL, really little to the upside there on the high time frame. So if it really wanted to take upside liquidity, it's more or less got to go and hit 210 or higher. And there are some levels around 210, 213. So that kind of could happen. And for the high time frame stuff, it's sort of like 175 down to about 169, and 155 down to sort of about 140. And there is the really nasty levels down there at about 130, 125, but it'd be very, very hard to get there without some kind of black swan at this stage. So focus too much on that. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Right, so news. As you can see, we've got crypto-related news with one of those good old famous senators who's speaking all over the show. I think that actually we've got SEC chairs talking, we've got blockchain symposiums, we've got the thing that's important to me is the New Zealand interest rate, but I don't think anyone really cares about that in crypto. And then as you see, we've got things like FOMC minutes, so there might be a word in there that they use as an excuse to dump something. And then we move into things like unemployment claims and housing sales, and there's always a lot of financial talk at Jackson Hole as well. And then, yeah, we move into things like Fed chair speaking. He might come out and say something stupid, and we get more dumps. So we've got a bit of news, this week, and that does kind of explain the price action. Okay, into the charts. The SOL Bitcoin Strength, it's pulling back up at the moment. So it's got an hour and 35 minutes to go, but it's pulling back up inside daily range. It's holding the daily trend. Ideally, it would go up a bit higher and maybe get closer to 1.6 again, and then it could open against the trend and target the 1.6 level at the top there. That would be good for a little pump. But if they do want to dump, they're just going to keep this about where it is now, sort of around the 158 sort of level, and that'll allow them to open on the wrong side of the trend and then reject down to the 153, 1.5 sort of level. So it's looking bullish, but as you saw yesterday, they can pump straight into a weekly rejection in the last few minutes of the day, and then they can just smash the price. So a candle basically means nothing until it closes. So as far as dominance of safety assets, I sent out a message about this yesterday. We hit that trend at 66%, and it's pushing back down to the bottom at the moment. So this is good as far as maybe getting a little bit of a relief pump out of the alts, but it still hasn't gone up and retested that 66.4 level. So once it hits the trend down here at 65, or if it goes to the base of the range again around 64.7 or 64.6, then it will probably bounce back up. It's sort of it's what things do. They sort of just bounce between supports and resistances. So this might give us a bit of relief, and then you might find that tomorrow, if it lands on something down here, bounces, then we go into dump day version 2 possibly. So we'll look at our totals. Total is bouncing off trend, which is good, and that's what's giving us basically this little bit of a bounce back on things like SOL, where we've bounced off those 179 levels. So if that keeps going up, great. Will it keep going up? Probably not. If it closes around here in 1 hour and 32 minutes, it'll have a hold level. That hold level that might get created in there at about 362T. It would then just be able to reject off that and then dump back down to that trend. So just be ready. The dump day version 2 is possible. And then a couple of our other total charts they're on the wrong side of trend, so they could, these got a bit of time to play out on them, but they sort of are playing out now. You can sort of see how the price just fights between the horizontal and the diagonal levels, and as such the market goes up and down. This is the most positive looking of all of the total charts. It's the 2-week close. That's targeting it's actually targeting more or less an all-time high. So this is the one thing that says to me maybe they're trying to make this price action look really bearish, but the intention might actually be to go to an all-time high even from where we are now, without that last part of the retracement, because it's pretty hard to hide this stuff. Like total market cap, it's everything. And particularly like this, when you take the stables out of it, it's just risk assets. So it's just Bitcoin and everything else. So yeah, it's bounced off that 3.61 level, which is the hold level closed yesterday. And the trend target's 3.95T, excluding all the stables. So if that keeps going, everything else will just keep going. It is also possible, because it's such a big time frame, like a 2-week time frame, that it dips back down again and then it goes back up. These things have got a lot of time to play out, so nothing says it couldn't hit something like 3.69, which is even that, which is just a 15-minute hold level. Maybe it hits that and then falls back down, and blah, it does that sort of thing. So so it's not a given that we're going to the moon from here, but it's also something that if some good news does come out this week and this thing just starts to go off on a tear, that's where it's going, and it was planned from down here all along. So my shitcoin of the week doesn't seem to matter what SOL and BTC do. This thing just wants to go to the line. This is a really good educational example of degrees of distribution and accumulation. It's broken through its cycles. It's flipped up. You get your trend. You enter your range. You go to your target. It'll just go until it hits that line. So it doesn't really care what the rest of the market does, and because it just has to do what it's programmed to do effectively. Right. So let's have a look at BTC. So the one-day close on BTC is a bit nasty. So I've got a couple of extra trends on here. I've done these in a slightly different way, sort of excluding some of the sweeps that we've had historically. And this one we've got in here is a range trend. So it is bouncing off its trends, but what it needs to do is it needs to get back inside this little range here where they've heavily sold it down. So if it doesn't do that, then most likely it's just going to reject when it gets above 117.096, and then it's going to travel back down again to have to try and find some kind of support on one of these trends, which hopefully hold. Now the other thing is that if it closes down here, regardless, even if it gets back inside the 117.096 area before close, it could just come up and reject off this trend of about 117.5. So there's not a huge amount of goodness going on BTC. Like, it really does look like it just wants to jump off a cliff again, but like I said, this stuff can change pretty quick. So this is short term though, what is daily. So if we look at the 2-day, so 2-day is still within its range. It hasn't hit its break level, which is 114.227, so that's positive. If it closes today, it means it's bounced this 2-day hold here. So this is the message I sent out yesterday for people to long between 115 and 116.5 or 4, I think I said. I was just being sort of conscious of that trend wherever it might have sat. But this hold level here, it's done its thing. It's bounced the price. The price is heading back to trend. That should be around that 117 if it closes under here, because that's a range trend coming through there. If it gets above the range trend and closes, then you could look at 119 or even back up to 122. But it would have to close above that range trend realistically today, which means closing at a level of around 117.5 to be back up over the top of that. So this is not a bad looking chart in the scheme of things. It's still holding an uptrend. It's creating some extra support. It's losing a bit of a range from the top. So maybe it gets up in the next hour and a half, closes, and then it gets a little bit of a bullish pump, or it might dive again if it closes here, but it's not too bad. So the 1-day looks pretty crap, but the 2 days actually not so bad. So 5 days got a level of polarity on it. So it's still holding its range, but it's on the verge of losing its uptrend. It's on the wrong side of the uptrend. To make sure that doesn't become a problem, it's really got to get back above its break level, which is 119.8. So could happen. We've seen this before with Bitcoin where it just pumps towards the close, but yeah, if it's under 119.8, I'd be a little bit more bearish on this time frame. But what we really do not want to see is we do not want to see a close below 116.614, because that as a close builds that hold level resistance. The rejection of that will then try to attack one of these lower trends. And as it currently stands, the range trend's like 111. If that range trend doesn't hold it, or if these hold levels don't hold it, then it's 98. Just off that one order block, one hold level getting created at close. And that 98 level bugs me because we have got that 98 level on our higher time frame liquidity. It's just sitting there, and this is the kind of thing that can send it, and it won't be straight away. It would potentially be a break, and then it could be a bleed, and it actually starts to make you question whether or not that's it, market's done, because a fast dump and a pump back up, fast recovery, takes the longs out, goes off to new highs. That's awesome. It's bullish. Fast down, fast up is bullish. But if they create a 5-day hold level to bleed the price down to the next interior trend level to take that 98 liquidity, that's not bullish really. That's pretty bad. So keep an eye on that 5-day close. The 10-day close, it's really just in limbo. It's just in a flag. There's not too much to be said here other than it already made that 10-day hold level. It rejected to the trend. It hasn't broken the trend, so in a way the trend is kind of winning. That's a little bit bullish. So if it can hold that trend and dive it to grab some of that lower liquidity and then pump back up again, then again bullish. So Bitcoin's really chucking out some mixed messages. The 23-day time frame, so it's above its top resistance trend, but it would have to close for this to be a break of this resistance trend. It has to close over 117.886.6. It has to flip this candle into a yellow candle effectively. So this has a hold level. So if it can't hold that trend, it has a hold level to try and break it again at 110.220. So it could dip down there and then come back up and try to break that trend. So same sort of confluence around that 110 area. I really like this chart because it actually shows that you've got this sort of like we've got this long-term channel which exists here to here, and we've got sort of more of a recent channel which is here to here. So if it can break out of this channel, which is kind of what we want to see, then we can go up into price discovery into this bigger channel. So you can sort of see what the intention of it is if it can actually get away from where it is now. Okay, 46-day. I'm a little bearish on this one because there's that little gap down here. Well, it's a little gap. It's $700 gap. So we've got a hold level at 97,537, which is in that liquidity range that we've got, and we're about to open a candle on the underside of this trend. So literally, if it rejects that trend tomorrow, based on a 46-day time frame, it would have trend and hold level confluence to dump to 98. So if we had some bad news this week, you can see what they are planning to do, which is to nuke this. If we have some good news this week, you can see how they could actually bounce, off some of the levels that they're in. So this is, this is a pretty nasty looking chart. But what it does sort of suggests is one way or another, if you take 46 days, maybe multiply it, because maybe we do a blow off top, If you take 46 days, multiply it by 2 or 3, that's probably about where things are over, because opening a candle under this trend means it would have to, even if it went up in the next 46 days, it's starting from the wrong side of resistance. So it would open something, it would find the next sort of resistance level, which could be up here, and that's pretty bullish, 170K. But if it rejects that, it just comes all the way back. And if it hasn't tested this level, when it rejects that, it really comes all the way back. And I think by that point, if you dropped 70 or 80K off the price of Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure people would freak out and start selling. So we shall see on that one. The 1 week is looking a little weak. Dad joke. It is holding. This is actually a daily trend, so I'll just put a couple of daily trends so you can see what's happening. It's sort of looking to lose the weekly trend if it doesn't pick up by the end of the week. But it has, or it has / will form a daily support, so it's not complete loss there. Do I just skip? No, here we go. And on the monthly, it's got a retest area of 102, which is always sitting there staring us in the face. It's got hold levels at 84, staring us in the face. It's got 13 days to get over that topside trend. And if it does that, then it can pump up to the higher resistance trend around the 150s. But it's really, it needs to be up over that trend in 13 days. Whether it goes down and up doesn't really bother me, but it just needs to be up over that. So that's kind of why we're just keeping an eye on that one. So that would mean by the end of the month, we really want to close over 121. All right, let's look at SOL. Okay, the SOL on the daily. What we want to see, like the strength, we want to see it pull back up before daily close and get over 185. To be exact, 185.076. If it gets back inside that daily range, then it will hold the trend. It will push back up to the next trend. That completes that daily trade for 188. Now it's probably going to reject off 189.5, regardless of how great things might appear at the time, unless it can get all the way back up there in the next hour and 18 minutes and not create that hold level. So keep an eye on this one. It's my guess, if they are going to give us dump day version 2, is that this will possibly get up inside its range just to make everyone long, and then it will probably go up, maybe reverse dive through the trend, hit the hold level at 189, and then dump back through the trends again. So, now the real bearish scenario is that it just keeps going down, closes say under about 183, opens on the wrong side of trend and just keeps going down. And the medium bearish scenario is that it closes just under the 185.076 and then just retests the break of the daily range and then rejects down. So it's still inside the bigger daily range, which is good, but then it's also still inside the accumulation range. If this just starts to pump, like recaptures the trend and starts to pump, which effectively means the daily close would have to be over 188, and then it could use the reverse side of the trend to fight the hold level and then just keep going. If it does that in the next hour and a bit, then it's going to retest things like these 200, these 205, 206, and 210 levels. So the moment, unless it really goes off in the next hour and 17 minutes, I'd say they're gearing up to trick people into dump day version 2. So the 2-day close, it's on the wrong side of trend support. It hasn't gone and touched its hold level down here at 169.4. It hasn't touched the next trend. And there are things like hard closed origin levels that sort of date back to February, and they're sitting at about 174. So, 174 to 169 is that block of liquidity. So if it closes here, it could go retest the 187.620. Maybe it completes the daily move even by just pushing a little bit through that to that 188, and then it could dump. And so this is looking a bit tricky from my perspective. The hold level that was created several days ago, which is this one that was up here at about 191, its rejection looks like it's going to break this trend. But the candle is on it, so therefore this candle doesn't technically break it. It can move back up. If it does recapture that trend, then those topside targets are very similar to the daily, like 195, 206. These trends that are up here around 208. or a spike through those to grab liquidity up higher. So they're pretty much the same. SOL actually looks so much better than Bitcoin. Okay, so on the 5-day, it's going to create a range trend. The range trend run through there. So again, if it was to push back up a bit more, get a bit more of a wick on the bottom of this range trend, then it could open and use that to bounce. So that's where those sort of 188, 189 closes, they serve so much purpose across all these different time frames as far as flipping it bullish. Now, if it closes where it is now, it'll open on the wrong side of that range trend. It could then move up and reject off the back side of the trend and go down. So once again, it could still complete the dailies. It could still complete some moves on the 2-day and then just go down anyway. We don't have hard closed levels on the 5-day, which is a bit bad. Like these levels that are in the 179 areas, they're not actually hard closed, which really means that you've got a range at 153.315, which is hard closed, and it's had a retest. It was lost, it was gained again. It hasn't had a retest since it was gained again, so that's a bit suspect. It should really have one. But it's also got that hold level, which is within 10 cents at 153.2. So, and all of the main trends come through there. So yeah, I still think that if they're going to do dump day version 2, and if there's bad news, then we'll see 150s. Right. Now let's look at some real bullish charts. So the 10-day is looking to create a hold level at 181.401, as long as it closes over that. However, it's got a break level that it's closing under at 184.827. So if it gets above that break level and creates this hold level, it might move between the trend and the hold, which would be sort of a 181 up to 199 type move. So this is potentially quite bullish. If it gets up over the break level, closes over the break level, then it might just pop up to 199 just for giggles and then reject. The one thing to watch about this time frame is that if it actually goes up first, it will come back, and so maybe that is going to be part of that play. They might just give it a little pop on the higher time frame, which will push through the lower time frame stuff, and then boom, back down. So, but yeah, bullish would be to go down then up. So really the level to watch for this one is 184.827. If we get a daily close over that, then yeah, we could get a little bit of a push. And we really do not want to close below 181.401 for so many reasons across everything we've looked at. 23D. So 23D is closing underneath its break levels. It's got a multitude of things in here: break levels, origin levels. It's already hit its hold level. It's already completed its move to trend. So that was in that last week when we sort of went from the 160s up to the 204, 205 area. So that's all complete now. It is still holding its interior uptrend. That's positive. And there's not really a lot of reason to come down here, but it does have a hold level at 118. I don't think it would get there. It's got another trend there at 141. It would have to deal with that first. And if it bounced off that trend, it would be all the way back up here again to the the 200s and possibly even those higher levels. If we can get if we can start closing over these 200s, these 208s and 204s and these sorts of numbers, then we should definitely head off to the 250s, 260s. So it's just, yeah, SOL's looking bullish, even though Bitcoin seems to want to not go up. 46-day SOL, it's building a support level at 173. So that sits in that 175 to 169 cluster. That it has a trend. So if you take this and you move your trend through time, it goes like this. So there, and then because the corner of this candle is actually touching the trend, it goes all the way to there. So this trend is currently sitting at about 136. That hold level, which has already tested this, sorry, this wick, which has already tested this hold level, could literally bounce from 170s up to 236, and that is the trend target. So the other thing is that we've got this trend running down here, but this topside trend it's more based off the sweep of liquidity before the dump. So sweeps are not trends, and so it's hard. And this is kind of why when you start dealing with trends, you've sort of got to figure out what's the real trend. Now, if this is our interior trend here, coming down from around that 240 down to this 184 candle, if that's our interior trend, this is not breaking it, but it could come back to that 170, bounce off the 170, go up here, close, and wrong one, and move that trend. Right? So that's really possible. And before you leave a range, quite often what happens is you end up with two trends that are really close together, like the interior and the exterior trends end up real close together. And so if we just imagine you've got that candle, we bounce off this, we come up here, and we close a yellow candle through drawing. There's a candle. Shouldn't use a blue pen for a day. If we then get those two trends that are really close together, all we have to do is get over that and it bounces. So that time frame's looking pretty bullish. Yes, there could be a retrace, but it's building more support, which is the thing Bitcoin's not doing. So that's kind of why BTC is scary, because if BTC dumps, ultimately it brings SOL down too. But SOL really looks like it wants to go up. So the 115-day time frame, polarity is 189.270. We've closed over that multiple times on lots of different time frames. This might be the first day we don't, but it's not really saying much. And then the weekly is still holding all the weekly levels. It's holding the weekly trend. It's holding the weekly breaks. It's holding the weekly range trend. It hasn't hard closed that weekly range trend, but got 6 days to go. So this could dip, go back up, all part and parcel of the other time frames playing out. But all it really has to do is we really just want to see a weekly close over 190, 0.944. And if we do get that weekly close, then we've hard closed every single range trend, every single level that's down on the bottom here, and then off we go. And if we do have some really big bearish dip all the way down to the weekly hold level, which is down here at 153.212, the weekly trend is sitting up there at 207, so it'll be down then up. So that's still looking pretty. Still just looks bullish, whichever way you consider it, really. And the monthly is really 13 days to go. It's just sitting above its trends. I've put maybe here, same reason. It's kind of the difference between a sweep trend versus a trend that just takes you through all the candles. There's just something weird about this. Earlier in the year, we had a trend break which didn't go to target. It was this candle here. It stopped like 50 cents early, and it's been bugging me ever since. And I'm just thinking, well, I wonder if it's because they're not considering this as a trend. So maybe I haven't actually put it on there, but when we did, here it is. When we broke this trend, we stopped 50 cents short of that target. Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, and then it made a hold level, and that was also strange. Like it made a hold level to attack a trend. It had already broken the trend. So there was just something really strange about that, and it's just got me thinking that SOL could actually break out from around this point, just simply because it's been so long and everything's coming through here. So if it was to get out over there on the monthly, then off she goes, So 230s, 243s, basically price discovery once it gets over this area here. So that's looking pretty cool. So yeah, hopefully you got something out of that. Like, subscribe. Had the biggest number of views I've ever had yesterday, so that was pretty cool. And it's good to see a few people popping into the Discord. So some new faces in there. So yeah, come on in and ask questions if you've got questions. There's good traders in there, and not just all my style. There's people in there that do things different ways. And yeah, so hopefully we'll catch you again. Cheers. Bye.